Thanks for tuning in to Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and today we have another Top 10 LEGO minifigure video. So throughout this series, we are counting down the best of the best minifigures from every single year of LEGO. We ended 2021 by taking a look at the best collectible minifigures and non-collectible minifigs of that year, and we've so far just done the best minifigures that are not collectible figures, just standard retail set figures in the year of 2020. And so for this video, we'll be taking a look, counting down my top 10 personal favorite and in my opinion best minifigures that were from the collectible minifigure series of 2020. And oh man, there is a lot to cover here. Again, before we get started, I do want to state that of course this is just my opinion and I'd love to hear yours. Let me know down in the comments below, do you agree, do you disagree, or do you think I was missing anything? And do you own any of the minifigures on this list? And so, without further ado, let's just jump right into number 10.
Alright, so first off, we have an entrant from the 2020 series of, well, Series 20 figures. This is the Tournament Knight from the classic standard collectible minifigures that are non-licensed, just meant to depict kind of standard LEGO ideas and minifigures. This is a pretty notable figure because it introduces a brand new castle faction, which is a really nice way to get a fully detailed minifigure and also army build them if you want to actually create some stuff of their own. I really do like how this actually does have a lot of detailing, especially around the dual molded legs. Again, it is always very nice to get dual molded legs, but this one's actually even more special because not only are they dual molded with the Keat Orange or Flame Yellowish Orange and Gunmetal Gray, but they also have printing on the side with alternating black and yellow striping patterns, which looks really good on the figure itself. Moving upwards, the figure also introduced a fantastic new sword element. This is by far probably the most realistic LEGO medieval sword they've ever made for any sort of minifigure ever. It absolutely tops the version introduced for Lord of the Rings, and I've actually gone ahead and ordered multiple copies of the sword on bricks and pieces just to supplement my Lord of the Rings minifigure collection because it just looks so much better. Really a big fan of the way this particular piece turned out, and I'm very glad they didn't keep it exclusive to the collectible minifigure series. The shield itself with a raven emblem does look quite good as well. Could definitely imagine a lot of different castle mocks featuring this flag banner, and it is nice to see the yellow and black pattern continue alternating upwards to the top of the torso. Unfortunately, the figure does feel a little bit bare without any sort of armor piece. I would have really liked it if they reused the silver Praetorian Guard armor piece, which they actually introduced for the Black Falcon Knights. Just a year later for the Ideas Blacksmith, would have been nice to actually get an armor piece with this figure. And the helmet isn't really anything special, it's basically just the standard Gunmetal Gray Knight's helmet, but beyond that, it's generally still a fine looking figure, if not a fairly simple looking one. One thing I really do actually like is the head underneath. It feels suitably medieval and really does feel like it fits the era, so that is a major plus. But with that, we can now move on from this pick towards number 9. And at number 9, we have a minifigure from the LEGO Harry Potter Series 2 figures. This Kingsley minifigure depicts this member of the Order of the Phoenix with fantastic detail, featuring some excellent printing on the sides of the arms, as well as a great new robe element, plus some subtle but great looking printing on the boots as well as the legs themselves. Of course, this minifigure really stands out to me, especially because of the robe element. It's using a fabric element that's very similar to the graduation robe, but it does actually look really good. They're using two different colors. You've got a standard LEGO blue on the front, but on the inside you have a darker blue color, which just looks really realistic. It also introduces a brand new mold for the fez-like hat piece that he wears, and while the rest of the figure is fairly simple, I'm just a big fan of the way the entire appearance of this figure looks once everything is put on. Removing the hat, which sits at a slight angle on his head, which just adds to the realism of the figure. You can see all sorts of detailing on the sides of the figure, with the blue and gold printing really standing out. I really do like the way the gold and shiny prints reflect in the light as you turn the figure around, and while it definitely isn't one of the most detailed figures on this list, again, the legs are almost just plain purple with a few sparse details, and the arms, besides the arm print, are fairly plain as well. It just is generally a pretty good looking figure, and I generally just like the way the character comes across in LEGO form. But with that, we can now move on to our number 8 pick. And for number 8, we return to the Series 20 minifigures. This is simply titled the Space Girl. And this figure is pretty notable on a few fronts. First of all, it is one of the first collaborations with NASA as a licensed brand in one of the standard non-licensed collectible minifigure series, but there are quite a few different details here that really make the figure stand out. First of all, you can see the blueprint piece looks really good printed on the 2x3 tile, definitely something that could fit in with basically any sort of scientific or blueprint-like setting. Obviously, the main star of the show is actually seeing the classic one-man spacecraft printed on the shirt there. Just so many different applications for having that be a standard print on a minifigure. I'm just a really big fan of the way it comes across. It just looks really good and definitely is an excellent callback to a classic LEGO space set. The dual molded hat-hair combo is something we have seen before, except not in this particular color, with the space logo on the top of the baseball cap looking really good in particular, and of course it's nice to get some printing on the legs as well, featuring a classic planet and star design, which somewhat evokes the classic space logo. Unfortunately though, the rest of the figure is fairly plain. The arms are just plain gray and the legs are basically just blue jeans with a small print on them. You can see that removing everything, there is a bit of a double-sided face on the back of the figure there, one with and without goggles, which is a very unique print to get. But other than that, this is a fairly basic figure that really is accentuated by the amount of accessories, as well as the fact that of course the t-shirt has a great reference to classic LEGO space. And with that, we can now move on to number 7. And at number 7, we return to the Harry Potter Series 2 figures. This is Griphook the Goblin, who is very, very notable for the Sword of Gryffindor mold that has been introduced specifically for this figure, as well as the hairpiece, but of course I think the sword is basically the star of the show here. It is the most accurate and probably the most accurate design we've ever gotten and will ever get for the Sword of Gryffindor in LEGO form. I really love the dual molded detail with the transparent red emblems on the sword, really making it stand out and feel strikingly different from other LEGO sword elements. Of course, it is nice to get the striping pattern continuing down the sleeves of the figure itself, and while the short legs are fairly plain and basically just the plain black short legs, the torso makes up for it by having a great amount of detail with the stripe pattern continuing along the side. The face looks very suitable for this particular character. Removing the hat, you can see it's just basically one face, but he really didn't need an alternate one, and I do really like the way the painted element on the head with the goblin ears looks. It looks both very accurate, but also something that could be reused for other fantasy applications, and doesn't necessarily have to stick within the Harry Potter theme. Of course, though, again, the minifigure is on the list specifically because he introduced the fantastic Gryffindor sword mold, as well as not being a bad figure in its own right. And with that, we can now move on to number 6, and at number 6 we have another entry from the LEGO Harry Potter Series 2 figures. This one is a bit of an unorthodox choice, but this is the Ron Weasley minifigure. Now at first glance, this may not seem like that interesting of a figure, but as you start to turn the figure on its side, you'll notice that this is jam-packed with a lot of different detailing, including excellent printing on the sides of the legs as well as the sides of the arms, plus introducing a brand new butterbeer cup mold, which of course could be just used for standard beer or alcoholic drinks in general, which is a really interesting piece to get from LEGO, and something that I think is just a cool mold to get, of course dual molded with the transparent clear and the transparent orange color. My favorite thing about this figure is that they took what could have easily been a very boring and uninteresting design and added a lot of extra detail to it, to really make the figure pop and feel very special. I really love the printing on the sides of the arms with the azure striping continuing down to reflect the front of the torso there, and the legs themselves, which again did not need to be printed whatsoever, but they actually went the extra mile to print a little bit of detailing on the sides of the jean fabric, as well as having the gray boot continue along the side of the leg. It just feels like this figure is truly very deluxe. He includes 2 different facial expressions which feel pretty perfect for the Ron character, and while the hairpiece is basically just the standard one they've used for Ron even all the way back in the 2011 Ron minifigures, it definitely does the trick and looks very good for the figure itself, so I am very happy with how this figure turned out. They took a generally boring and uninteresting civilian figure design and just packed it full of detail to really make it stand out in a crowd. And with that, we can now move on to our number 5 pick. And at number 5, we return to Series 20. This is the simply named Viking minifigure. And this figure is very notable for introducing a brand new Viking helmet, which actually is period accurate. You see, Vikings did not actually have the bones that arc out of the sides of their helmets as they often do in popular media. That has been an invention by movies and television. They never actually did have that on their actual helmet, so it's really good to get somewhat of a historically accurate Viking with a helmet that goes around the beard mold really, really well. Of course, the figure itself also has a lot of other detail as well, which is somewhat hidden by the cape and the accessories. The shield itself is a great update to the classic LEGO Viking print. It somewhat resembles the classic blue and white printing on some of the older LEGO Viking 2006 figures, but definitely takes it a step further by having it printed on the Captain America shield piece, which just looks really good. And the spear is something we have seen before, but does feel accurate for this character. Of course, removing all the extra accessories though, you can see that this figure is actually jam-packed with detail itself, featuring not only dual molded legs, but also dual molded arms, which feels really special, printing continuing on the sides of the legs, and even a small cape printing on the back of the figure if you wanted to leave the blue cape off. And all in all, this just makes the figure feel truly deluxe and special, and really makes it seem like LEGO went the extra mile with this figure to have all sorts of different dual molding and printing incorporated with the design itself. The head underneath is a very nice design that really could be used for all sorts of different applications, just a minifigure with a large bushy orange beard, and I'm glad they continued the beard printing despite having the beard itself removed. With that, however, we have only reached the halfway point and there's still a lot more to go, so let's now move on to our number 4 pick. And coming in at number 4 is again another figure from the Harry Potter series. This is the Mornin Myrtle ghost figure featuring the Tom Riddle diary, as well as an excellent depiction of a ghost minifigure using the mid-legs, which is very accurate for the figure, plus a brand new rubberized mold for the hairpiece there. I really love the attention to detail on this figure, and while it doesn't have really any printing on the sides of the legs or arms, it's basically just using standard minifigure prints and designs, it just very accurately reflects the depiction of the character on screen that feels very authentic while still retaining the LEGO charm and look and feel. Rotating it all around, you can see all sorts of detail covering the front and back of the torso there, which feels very accurate, and it also has 2 different expressions, a crying face and an angry face, which again looks very realistic given the in-universe design. Moving the hair, you can see a bit of the Hogwarts logo hidden away on the front of the torso there, which is nice to see, as well as different printing on the Tom Riddle diary itself, which definitely has a lot of excellent movie-accurate detail, such as the conversation between Harry Potter and Tom Riddle. It's always nice to get brand new designs for ghost minifigures, as well as minifigures with mid-legs, which again were introduced for Harry Potter Series 1 figures, and so I am very pleased overall with the general design of this figure. But with that, we can now move on to our top 3 minifigures, the top 3 best collectible minifigures that came out of 2020. And starting off, we have an entrant from the LEGO DC collectible minifigures, which actually hasn't appeared on this list before. This is Mr. Miracle. He was part of the DC series, which features a pretty obscure character, but featuring a lot of excellent detail that I had to include on this list as part of the top 3 choice. Mr. Miracle here features a lot of excellent detail. Removing the chain around his body, you can see just how much detail the figure includes, sporting dual molded legs and arms with a very unique design of the printing on the sides of the legs to really make the print continue alongside the entire boot. I really love just how well the printing lines up on the side of the legs here to make it seem like he has green boots that somewhat ride up his ankle there, while still having different green shoulder pauldrons and designs that make it feel like he almost has a bit of a waist cape as well. It just overall is a really interesting design for a LEGO minifigure that really translates well to the different dual molding and side printing aspects of the character, and of course the rest of the figure is really good looking as well. Only one minor complaint though was that unfortunately the yellow printing on the head there simply is not as bright as it should be, especially if you compare it to, say, the yellow printing on the torso and the legs, which looks really bright and vibrant. The yellow printing on the head feels a little bit faded, which is a common issue for LEGO, but I feel like for a figure that is from a collectible minifigure series, they probably should be doing it a little bit better than that. Besides that though, that really is my only complaint, and everything else about this figure just looks really impressive to me, and I'm very happy with the overall design of it, and that's why it's number 3 on this list. And coming in at number 2, we have another entry from the DC minifigures. This is the classic comic-styled Cyborg minifigure. Of course, since this is a collectible minifigure, it is the best version of Cyborg we've ever gotten from LEGO. The figure introduces a brand new dual molded head sculpt, which looks really good and comic accurate, and is packed head to toe with different detailing, including dual molded arms, which feature some detailing on the printing for the sides of the arms and legs, which altogether make a very cohesive design for a minifigure that truly feels like a half figure, half robot. What I really love about the design is that it surprisingly actually has a silver head. Removing the headpiece there, you can see that the head itself is printed with the Cyborg minifig design. So just in case you wanted to use, say, a different headpiece or just use the head for different applications, it still looks really great. Having the skin color printed on the silver head still matches up perfectly with the standard color of the printing for the rest of the character. One thing that I really am impressed by with this minifigure design is the different colors of the layering on the chest there, using different shades of gray for darker gray, lighter gray, and silver to reflect different layers and depth for the muscles and sculpting of the body there, which definitely is something that feels very special and deluxe for the amount of detail included on any standard type of LEGO minifigure. The circles for the joints on the knees and elbows really do make it feel like a truly fully detailed LEGO figure, and I'm very happy with how this figure turned out overall, and is one of the most detailed figures that ever came out throughout the entire year of 2020. But with that, we can now move on to our number 1 pick for, in my opinion, the best minifigure of 2020 from the Collectible minifigure series. And that is Dumbledore from the LEGO Harry Potter line. Despite not featuring anything fancy like dual molded arms or legs, or even any printing on the sides of the arms and legs, this figure introduces an excellent dual molded hat and hair combo component for Dumbledore, and most importantly, introduces a fantastic Fawkes the Phoenix mold, which we haven't actually seen since 2002 for the original Chamber of Secrets sets, and this is far improved. Honestly, Fawkes kinda steals the show here, being an excellent mold for a new animal with vibrant printing of the keyed orange or flame yellowish orange, as well as a black beak and some black stripes on the back of the head. It just feels very authentic to the overall figure design. What is very special about this figure is that as we continue along the back here, the printing continues on the back of the skirt robe element as well. And of course, once you remove the beard and the hat, you can see just the sheer amount of detail packed into this robe. One thing I really appreciate is the amount of detail that's layered onto the robe here. As we rotate the figure all the way around, you can see the detail is excellently depicted, continuing all the way seamlessly from the back all the way down from the top of the torso to the bottom. And what's really nice is very subtle detailing in the darker elements of the robe. It's not just plain dark red, you've got some very subtle dark gray printing that really makes it feel like this robe is lived in and has creases and an underlaying pattern to it. Just all in all, a really excellent figure design in general. And again, while it's not nearly as detailed as maybe some of the other figures on this list, it definitely really stands out because this very accurately depicts the character it's supposed to represent. This is basically the perfect Dumbledore we've ever gotten from LEGO, and I don't know how they're going to even top this in future sets because this is basically about as good as it's gonna get.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up our look at the top 10 best collectible minifigures of the year of 2020. Again, it was just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below, do you agree, do you disagree, and share your favorites as well, and let me know if you own any of these and which are your personal favorites. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely stay tuned for more videos like these. With 2020 all summed up, the next top 10 minifigure video will be focused on 2019 as we go ever backwards in time, culminating in eventually, after many weeks worth of videos, a massive showdown between the best minifigures from each year in a massive top 10 or probably top 20, top 30 list. We'll find out when we get there, but until then, thank you so much for tuning in, and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye bye for now.